On today's show, it's part two of two with myself and Tyler Jones talking all things Hawks. Part one is available in your feeds right now, and part two is coming to you. Here we go.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1656 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Monday evening into Tuesday here in February. And this is actually part two of two with myself and Tyler Jones, good friend of the podcast. So if you missed part one, I recommend starting there. It should be available in your podcast feed of choice right now on Apple or Spotify or YouTube, etc. But if you are listening to part one, part two should be coming to you now. Just more of a free-flowing conversation with myself and Tyler. We have fun always when Tyler comes on the show. And no further intros from me. Here we go, diving in straight to part two with myself and Tyler Jones. Let us discuss the rest of the season for a minute. Because as we sort of talked about, it ain't over. Like, we're two-thirds of the way through. The All-Star break is not really mid-season. People always say first half, second half. It's not really first half, second half. It's actually first two-thirds and last third. But if the season ended today, they'd be in the postseason. They'd be in the play-in. They'd be the 10th seed, but they'd be right there. And I don't know if you knock on wood or whatever, they're probably going to be healthy in the next week to 10 days. There's a chance that they have their entire top 8 available within the next week. You know, Congo might be still out on Friday when they return to action. Capela's seemingly going to be close to getting back, if not on Friday. Everybody else is healthy, knock on wood. So, like, you know, we'll see. The team behind them, by the way, the Nets fired their coach today. They're trending in the wrong direction. So, like, it will surprise me, I don't know about you, if they're not in the play-in at least at the end of the season, barring a Trae injury or something like that. Does that actually excite anybody? I don't think so, but that's kind of the reality of the situation. Putting the Trae stuff to the side, how do you feel about the last 25 games? Because, like, it's going to happen either way. Like, what are you looking for? What are you watching for? What are you prioritizing? I have a feeling the words Onyeka and Okongwu are going to come up pretty soon for you. What's on the radar for the next 2 months?
Well, I mean, before the last two games before the break,
you were thinking 6 seed. You and I talked. You were thinking 6 seed until about a week ago.
Good. I mean, they were playing good basketball and it was sustainable. And then one injury. Then one injury, and it's like, well, it's back to the toilet with this.
That Charlotte game. I don't want to overstate it, but Quinn, you could see it in Quinn's. I'm not sure if you saw in Quinn's post game after the Charlotte game. He kind of get the, like, he didn't blame, like, the 1-2-3 Cancun thing, but he was like, I don't know if it was this, I don't know if it was this, I don't know if it was this, and he was doing the whole thing, and I'm like, yeah, it was bad, man. It was really.
I hear you, Quinn, but like that's why you play your young guys and just have them.
It would have been good. Okay, let's go to that now.
That's one of if I want to be critical of Quinn, like, bro. You know how people act. You've been an employee of a company.
Yep.
If vacation is coming, you're not getting your guys' best effort. Period. Doesn't matter what the job is, especially if they're tenured. If they're not, tenured, if they're young and dumb and don't know better, and like, I just want to play, coach.
I really wonder if they had
10% like Jalen Johnson did.
If they had won the Bulls game, I wonder if they had shown up. If they had shown up more, we'll never know. But I wonder if that would have changed anything. If they won the Bulls game.
I mean, the Bulls game, like, it felt like they got just hit by like a wave of fatigue after the first quarter because it just became abundantly clear. It became abundantly clear nobody can stay in front of anybody, and I'm like,
and I wish
cooking.
I mean, and the defense. The problem was, it was the defense of both games, and the defense has been bad most of the season. So it's not like, on one hand, I am inclined, you know me, to go broad and be like, look, it's one game, it's the last game before the break. It's a weird sleepy game in Charlotte where nobody, it's not like it's a great test for you. It's like kind of explainable that you would no-show that game. It's just unfortunate because they can't afford to no-show games. Like, and that's the hole they've dug for themselves, that they can't afford to do that. And if they were, the reverse, if they were 31-25 or whatever they are, it would be a lot easier to be like, all right, they're still the 6th seed, no big deal. but that was a game that you're supposed to win, and they just and they didn't even close it. They lost it in dire fashion. That was really gross. So you mentioned the young guys. It's always important for me to like keep people in line that these are humans, and like Quinn is not gonna suddenly pivot away from the veterans entirely. At the same time, I've argued, and it's even aggressive when I'm arguing for it. Like, I thought there was no reason not to play Kobe in the last 2 games, none. I couldn't find a reason. And the thing is, like, would he have been playing more than 10 minutes a game? Maybe not. But like, you called him up. He played really well in a tiny role, but played really, really well. He helped your defense, and then he stayed up. Like, I've defended them playing him in College Park a lot because I think that's a real development path for him, is to play 35 minutes a game in College Park, have the ball in his head all the time, reps. Quinn believes it. I actually believe it's a real thing. But when you have him up in Atlanta, he plays well for you. You praise him a lot post-game, and rightfully so. And then the next 2 games, he's still with you, and he DNPs back-to-back games when you are, the season's not over, but you're the 10 seed. Like, I couldn't jive those 2 things together. I didn't get it.
Yeah, I think Quinn's battling the fact that he feels his team is way better than his record. Like, I think they should be, like, the Hawks should be 31-25.
Yeah, and he's maybe not as bad as Nate, but Quinn is definitely I want to win the game that night coach. But like, it's not quite as narrow as Nate was, but he's still very much in that way compared to a lot of coaches.
But and the reason why they haven't been is that they're just thin. They're just thin. So injuries derail whatever like Quinn's trying to build towards. The good news is that the only 3 forwards on the team are all healthy. And as long as one of Capela or Kongu is healthy, that should be enough. But they're always, successful they can't afford another injury. Like they literally cannot afford another Jalen misses 5 games. That's the can't afford
any injuries. It's
crazy. Sadiq misses anytime, it's over. DeAndre Hunter misses anytime, it's over. Like, they can't afford those 3 guys in particular because they just don't have depth at the position in the NBA, which is forward, which is what's hurt them. It's just flat out killed them. So as long as they're healthy, they'll win more than lose. How much they win depends on, a variety of factors. One being Okongwu and Jalen just playing more minutes together, and Trae continuing his play recently. But you're right. They got to finish some margins right now. They have to win.
It's frustrating because, and we won't do this because we know I did it before, about like the team building issues. Like, we'll save that for the offseason right now. Like, we all get the reality is, in the NBA, you shouldn't build a team that can't operate with the Hawks injuries they've had so far this year. They have not had bad injury luck. They actually haven't. It's just that this team is not built for it at all.
Losing somebody like DeAndre Hunter, who's been, he's
played well this year.
He's played well, and he's played. Since he's came back, he's been really good. Yep. But losing somebody like him, and your season just cratering because after your starters, you have literally nothing, and you're basically like, we can't optimize any lineups because I got to have one of Jalen or Sadiq on the floor at all times. So I'm staggering them. I'm forced to play lineups I don't want to play. I'm forced to play 2 center lineups. I'm forced to throw out a Garrison Matthews here, a Patty Mills here, just to buy minutes, like get some shooting out here so that we can just outshoot the team. But if we're not making shots, we're going to get killed on defense, especially in transition. So, like, I think, a lot of the Hawks' problems happened in the offseason. Like, just you're right. And that's combined with the gamble they made with DeJounte Murray, which hasn't panned out in large part because they miscalculated what he was as a defender.
Oh yeah, very much. That was out there. Just since you brought it up, I might have mentioned it earlier at some point. There was I think it was David Lee. Somebody had a bunch of, a bunch of graphics about DeJounte, and it was actually I think it was from Basketball Index, if I recognize the graphics. But it was essentially what we talked about a lot, that like they just fundamentally misevaluated DeJounte's defense pre-acquisition to the point where like he's not an on-ball defender. Today's show is brought to you by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sometimes we actually need the opportunity to get something off of our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important to let that stuff out, especially to those who are unbiased on your life. So today I want to tell you how I feel about something, and maybe for a few of you in a similar space, you might happen to understand that. And that is that I have some unease about the next steps in the media right now. I'm not just talking about what's reported on the Hawks, of course, but whether there are actually going to be jobs available for me, whether the work that I do in different ways will be able to continue how it is now across the media landscape. And of course, not the most important or intense or life-altering topic, but therapy can be different for everybody. Most of us, including me, have much bigger problems than the stuff involving sports and media, but it is quite important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's designed to be flexible, suited to your schedule. It's also entirely online. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. The place to go is BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Is it they or is it Nick Ressler? Like, well, can we be honest? Like, I mean, it's one of those things where I'm like, the GM at the time told him.
That is true.
The lifelong scout said, hey, he's not a point of attack defender. This is a dumb trade. It's not going to do anything. And like, it's shown up because in large part on the offensive end, DeJounte's not big enough to take advantage of the 4-on-5 opportunities that Trae Young generates for him. Like, he's just not physically big enough on these drives. Yeah. And he's not as good as a shooter as Bogey. So you just not get like you're getting neutral value from him as an offensive player while you're not getting anything on defense. That's the reality with the Trey De Jon thing. Period.
Yeah, it was a misvaluation, a misvaluation, and like you said once earlier, at least, and I'll say it now, like it's not about DeJounte not being good, because DeJounte is good. He's very good. It's just it's the way it's meshed together. Anyway, to the side. All that said about the roster construction being not great. It is the roster the rest of the season. Now, there was a Patrick Beverley report today. I'm not sure if you saw that. Patrick Beverley is an active player, and he has been doing this kind of spiel where he's trying to be an insider. He's currently on a roster. Bizarre. But he mentioned Daniel House could be going to the Hawks. I haven't heard that, but maybe Pat knows things.
He has those. They just play with each other.
I'm not piling on. He might be right. But all I know is the Hawks don't have a roster spot at this very moment. So as we're recording this podcast, we'll see. Anyway, ignoring that for a second, the roster is the roster, right? I told you, and then I actually shared it publicly, that the last couple of weeks was the first time in the entirety of the Okongwu-Capela partnership in which I actually thought there was a chance the Hawks might start Okongwu with a healthy Capela. Now, of course, Okongwu went down right after that. And the natural progression, I thought, might be, hey, we're going to close the first half strong with Okongwu playing center. He's playing really well, which he is. And Clint's hurt. So we go to Clint and we say, all right, Clint, it's really worked for us to have Okongwu start. We're going to go ahead and slide you to the bench. We're going to ride with Okongwu. And then Okongwu got hurt. So I don't know what they're going to do. I know how you feel about it.
This is like the second time this has happened. Though the first time it happened was like Okongwu's second season when he had.
And they were going to do it then.
Total surgery. Yeah. But Capela, if you remember correctly.
He was out. Yeah.
He had the Achilles thing.
Yep.
And he wasn't like he started the season, but he clearly was.
He was not healthy
to get back. And he shouldn't have been playing at all. And I think like Okongwu just not being there to start the games to show what I've been saying about Okongwu, that he needs to start. His value is as a starter. You can't expect a 6'8" center to have like a massive impact playing 24 minutes a night. That's just not happening. Like it's just like they're just because he's not the lob threat that Capela is, even though he's a pretty good lob threat, but Capela just being bigger gives Trae an easier avenue. That's why Trae likes playing with Capela so much. But
that and the screen setting.
I mean, Okongwu's a much better screener. I understand.
It's a chemistry. It's just a chemistry thing.
I get it, but like Trae's having a career year from the 3-point line because Okongwu's setting real screens and getting them open to shoot jumpers, which isn't what Trae wants to do, but that helps the team win games. So, like, personally, on my end, I don't really care, Trae, that you love playing with Capela, because guess what? He makes, like, there's no line. Like, I looked at it again. There's no lineup with Capela with the starters, any of the starters. That's good. It's all bad. It's all in the red, in large part because his lack of skill level is heightened because he's playing alongside somebody like Jalen Johnson, who's, while his percentages are good, isn't a high-volume three-point shooter. Saddiq Bey struggling from the three-point line this season. And DeJounte Murray, not a high-volume three-point shooter, even though he's been better. And you know, combined with
taking more.
It's just one of those things where it's like the starters with Trae, DeJounte, Saddiq, Jalen, Capela, the only shooter really is Trae that teams fear, that teams are scared to leave open, is Trae Young. And so what that leads to is just a tightening of the paint on offense. And then defensively, we talked about it. No point of attack defender. You got Trae, DeJounte, Bey, Saddiq Bey. Saddiq's been better recently, but like he's not.
I do wonder, by the way, if they're going to go to Hunter coming out of the break.
That would be I only say they might not
because they usually do that. Now I'm with you. I'm not sure if they're going to or not. They usually have defaulted to, if Hunter is not restricted by minutes, he's going to start, and that's been the case for 4 years. He's been the starter in Penn. I'm not saying that's correct, but he's always been the guy at the 3. This time around, number one, Quinn loves Saddiq Bey. I don't know who needs to hear that. Quinn loves Saddiq Bey.
And like the other thing I wanted to bring up with Saddiq, I actually wanted to bring that up, is like the Hawks win when Sadiq's in the game. The Hawks win. Like, he's a winning player.
I wish he could make a jump shot, but yes, he plays hard.
I get it, but I mean, like, so many two-man liners with Saddiq Bey are like the best liners on this Hawks roster, period.
Yeah,
like,
his on-offs are some of the better ones on the team. Now, it's the offense, actually, that improves. Even though he hasn't been able to make a jump shot, it's the offensive numbers that go up with Saddiq compared to the defense. The defense is bad, and he's not very good. But, like, in addition to the jump shooting, because you know me, I was probably the guy who was seen as being super low on Saddiq 10 months ago because of his defense, right? And now I'm trying to convince Hawks fans that, like, no, he's not bad because he's missing jump shots. Like, he does a lot of different things. He's the only guy on the team that plays with the physicality he plays with. He's the only one, right?
He's basically just turned into John Collins.
Oh, I almost said the same thing. He's just with worse defense, and he's not a lot of threat.
I mean, that's a good player. He's been a good player, and that's why I'm like, and also combined with, I wonder if Glenn, like a couple of weeks ago, made a good point. If this is DeAndre Hunter they're going to get off the bench, maybe he needs to just come off the bench full time. Not because he's not better or worse than Saddiq Bey, but just to manage him.
I would love to know the science behind that. Like,
yeah, I don't know what the science is. I don't know. I don't really think there is any science other than they've gotten it. I just feel like Bey, Jalen, and Trae got a good chemistry together.
Yeah, I'm not saying you got to change it. I'm just saying they might.
But I'm not saying they shouldn't do that. I just think I think it's more like it's one of those feel things. We're not in the locker room. Like, I'd have to ask Quinn. Like,
it is, and
just have Bey just because, especially if you're going to continue to start Capela, which might be the case with Okongwu's injury.
Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks and Demons and Goblins, the newest and most exciting ways to play at PrizePicks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins give you different payouts. One up to 100 times the money, which is as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. If you want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players, like rapper Meek Mill or comedian Andrew Schultz, you can all find them under the Community Plays under the Promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each and every week. They also offer injury insurance so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players happens to get injured before the game. And PrizePicks is also simply very, very easy to play. I can put my picks in. It's been an entire entry, just a minute or less. They have quick withdrawals. They have easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types for you as well. That's what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. I've been playing there for quite some time now. I really enjoy digging into all the stuff on the NBA world, but also football, in season, baseball, WNBA, etc. I really enjoy diving into all of it each and every day. And the place to go is prizepicks.com/lockedonnba and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. One more time, that's prizepicks.com/lockedonnba and use code LockedOnNBA. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. #1, I always say this, but for new listeners, like, I actually care who starts way less than everyone else cares about it. But there are combinations that you want to keep together. That's important. Also, to your point you just made a second ago, there are locker room dynamics you have to manage. It always matters. And I'm not saying that should or shouldn't happen, but that's part of it. And that's why, this year especially, I've not been like banging the table that Capela has to start personally. It's more of a I just never heard that they're ever going to go away from it. And I think it could change now. I think if there was going to be a time this season, it would be now. Like, this would be the time to do it when he's already been out. It's post deadline. All right, big fella, you're still gonna play 20 minutes a game. No big deal. We'll manage you, but we want to see what this looks like with Onyeka and Jalen. So you got that dynamic. You got Sadiq and DeAndre because Hunter they've committed to. He's played very well this year, but maybe they want to manage the knee. They haven't actively managed guys as much as I thought they might this year. I thought they might avoid bogey minutes on back-to-backs, for instance, or Capela on back-to-backs. They haven't really done that. They've been kind of pushing, other than when they've been made by the performance staff to manage guys. Like with Hunter the last few weeks, it's been like, hey, you can't play him more than this. And Quinn's playing him this much. But fans don't even like it very much, but there's been nights where he's played like a 7.5 man rotation. Like, Quinn is not fooling around still. I don't know if that's going to change post deadline, but he's still playing, to the wall to win that night, playing guys 38 minutes, playing 8 guys and 7 in the second half. He's coaching every game matters. Yeah,
to me, my only thing is even if Okongwu comes back later, I think Quinn should just go with Okongwu and Jalen because it just works. It's one of those things.
And what they could do?
And the current starting lineup is just bad. The starting lineups have been horrendous, and they need to. Now they found some success before the break with Okongwu starting. He was playing really well. I think if I'm the Hawks management and coaching staff, I'm like, Quinn, we have to go with Okongwu here. Because we have to get some. We have to build this guy up.
It's information too. That's something I was arguing on Friday. Even if you don't think that it's the best thing to do, if you're Quinn, someone in the front office can go to you and be like, we need the information on Kobe. We need the information on Onyeka and Jalen and how it works. And maybe the solution is the half solution, which wouldn't excite anybody. Maybe you just take Clint out of the game earlier. And you kind of do I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm just giving you another option. I'm not saying this is what you're supposed to do. But you could make it to where you have Okongwu playing with the starters more often. If they're just dead set, and I'm not reporting that. I'm saying if they're just dead set on Clint's our starter. Okay, let's find the middle ground here and be like, okay, have because right now they basically play. It's essentially one long stint for Okongwu most of the time in both halves. Right? It's Clint in for a while, Onyeka in for 12 minutes. And then Clint closes the half. That's the rough rotation. And occasionally, you'll see it. And I call it out when I see it in the second half when I'm like, hey, they're going to close with Okongwu tonight because he brought him back in early. That's what happens. But roughly, it's 1 Clint, 1 Onyeka, and then 2 Clint, right? What if they did a little bit of switcheroo on that? And you end up closing with Okongwu more often? I'm not going to say it's politics. You know what I mean? It's just locker room or whatever it is. And Clint's just married to it. There's ways to get around that and still have Onyeka playing 26, 28 minutes a game and closing.
Brad, to me, I think the split just needs to go. Enough with the split. Play Okongwu 30 minutes a night. If Jalen's going to play 33 plus minutes every game, why are you starting it? Why are you playing so many of his minutes next to Clint Capela, who's a bad fit? They play well together.
I agree.
I don't care how good or bad you think Capela is, Quinn.
Right.
The math is undeniable.
That's what I'm about to say.
2 seasons of this too.
Right. And that's why, by the way, this summer
last year, you knew better last year not to do it. You knew better.
Do you remember?
You started Jalen. This is why you remember. Yeah, I remember.
I was about to say, you remember this summer? I was like, again, I wasn't saying it was like my opinion. I had intel. It was like, hey, they're going to start Clint and Sadiq, and it's not going to be Jalen. And they did that, and everybody was pissed off that they didn't start Jalen. And then they did, to their credit, they changed that fast. But even as resident Capela defender, he and Jalen don't make sense together. They never have. They don't make sense together. So once you decide, and I think they have.
Once you decided Jalen's to be the starter, Conley's got to be the starter, period. Because you know what? Guess what? Capela's not good enough to demand these minutes.
He's not.
Next to Jalen, period. It's not about his caliber player. It's about his fit. And at some point, Quinn needs to wake up and stop caring about like feelings or whatever. If you're trying to win a basketball game, then you play Jalen and Okongwu 30 plus minutes together every night, and Capela plays the rest. Period.
I think it's going to be.
They're so bad together, Brad. They're so bad together, Brad.
I know that
it's like anything they do well or poorly doesn't matter.
I think that they're probably going to play Okongwu more out of the break than they have been playing him when Clint is healthy. Now, do I expect them to do what you're asking them to do? I don't. But again, I think this is the biggest percentage chance. How do I put this? Yeah, the biggest percentage chance since Clint and Onyeka have gotten here for them to kind of make the change that everybody's looking for. And again, starting, I don't care about, but to your point, it's more about just playing those guys a lot together, playing Clint less with Jalen, if not at all with Jalen. You don't have to make it a pure literally tying Jalen and Okongwu together. But when you are fully healthy, you really could do that. You really could be like, we're going to have Jalen and Onyeka be a package. And they're going to come out together. They're going to come in together. And Jalen might play a little bit more because he's not a center, and guys that are centers play less. But you know what I mean? Like they could do that. And then you have Clint try to piece it together on the second unit when he's playing with guys that are smaller and do whatever and whatever. I don't know what they're going to do.
But Brad, it's possible to me that Capela will be better in a smaller role if that's the case.
I think he would be
better, more consistent, get the positives more. You potentially get Trae and Capela more often because he's coming off the bench.
I do think that would make sense too. If you did that,
this would just help the team. Like I think DeJounte is the one who's really hurt by playing alongside Capela as well. I know we're not talking about him, but like you look at the numbers. They don't work with DeJounte and Capela. They don't work. It's horrific.
Well, and it's the same as Jalen. It's not the same exact thing, but their skill sets don't overlap. They just don't overlap. You know, and it was a great move when they brought Capela in. I'm not going to go back 4 years, but like Clint and Trey's skill sets match really well, and that's helped Clint. It's helped Trey, especially not as much lately, but especially early on. Trey needed that, and now he doesn't need it anymore. Trey's where he is, but. Yeah, DeJounte and Clint have zero chemistry. Zero. None. And then, all that said. So we covered that, but I mean that's the whole thing. Like I think they're gonna play more Okongwu, but
like I'm like if they want to win some game, like if we're about winning. Let's be about winning. Let's get Bogey out here more. Like, hey, Bogey's got it going.
Ride him.
DeJounte plays less.
They're not gonna do that though.
Then we're not about winning. Then the team's not about winning. Period. I look at the 2-player lineup. I see who's the difference makers on this team. I see who's not. It's not that they're not good or bad. It's about the fit relative to the other players on the team. So I'm like, if we're about winning, how about we play our best lineups and our best players? Which I've been talking, Brad. I've been crying, coping, and moaning about this since October.
I know.
It's been October. And you know what? I'm like, whatever. We're not trying to win this season, so whatever. Like it's a quote unquote fact-finding season or whatever. I thought that's what the last 25 games were supposed to be last year when they got Quinn, but
that's what I hear.
Needed 82 more games of that. So that's curious, but like I don't know. I'm like,
I'm with you.
I'm pretty sure there's some people. This ain't analytics, by the way. This ain't analytics.
Oh no, no, it's not.
Straight on off.
It's not. Yeah,
where do I get my winning margin from? These lineups. Where do I lose my leads? It's always the same two guys, and it's like, why are they losing even though they're good? Oh, because their skill sets don't line up. Maybe you should have did, and that's where we go to the offseason where they have an opportunity to improve the team. By
the way, I have one more stat, and we have like 5 minutes left. You might know the answer here. Do you know who has the biggest on-off split on the team? Positive to negative. It is Bogey.
Yeah.
The Hawks have a negative 8.4 net rating with Bogey off the court this year.
Yeah. It's obvious.
And they're plus 1.7 with Bogey on. So, but they have a 10-point swing, Bogey on off. He has their best net rating and the worst net rating when he's off. That's actually hard to do for one guy.
Because while Sadiq is a good shooter, even though he's not shooting well this season, Bogey is a fire drill shooter. Even though DeAndre Hunter's been a good shooter, even though DeJounte Murray has been an improved shooter and he's actually been solid, not elite, but like he's been league average to slightly above league average in that department. Bogey is a true difference maker out on the perimeter in the way that Trae Young is a true difference maker as a player overall. And so it's just one of those things where it's like, we're trying to win some games. I have Bogey out there. I have Onyeka out there. So
and by the way, before anybody yells at me, Bogey's defense is really bad. And I won't argue with you. It's very bad. But the numbers are what they are. Bogey's been very good this year because he's a really good offensive player. All right, so Carver Center, just is the moral of the story is, again, we literally have a couple minutes left. Just I'm hoping to see Kobe. I'm not saying it has to be every game. I like Kobe to play basketball. And by the way, if he's not playing in the NBA, he should be in College Park, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there is a role for Kobe. There should be a role, but that's on like ultimately that's on Quinn. I don't think
Kobe has the ninth man. Okay, assume for 1 minute in this perfect world that they're actually healthy, right? And they have a clear top 8. They had their top 8 guys. The ninth guy this year often has been Garrison Matthews, right? I like Garrison Matthews. Garrison Matthews is a perfectly fine NBA lower end rotation player, right? Just play Kobe.
Yeah. There's no, to me, and that's where the Charlotte went upstream. I'm like, why is Garrison Matthews playing alongside Bogey? Like,
you don't need to do that.
What's the point?
Garrison should be the guy that you play if Bogey is sitting on a back-to-back or something.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're not exactly the same player, but they have similar offensive characteristics. Anyway, it's a very short. You're right, by the way. It's not really anything Kobe can do because, by the way, he did exactly what they wanted him to do in the game. The one game he's played in, he played exclusively as a wing. He played
the best perimeter defense
yes.
I've seen from Atlanta Hawk players since Dylan Wright.
That's what I'm saying. So like he played exclusive as a wing. He ran 0 sets on offense. He was playing the 2 the entire game that he played, and he played defense. And he took 3 or 4 threes, catch and shoots. That's all they need him to do. Long term, they don't want him to do that. Long term, they want him to be able to handle the ball, and that's why he's playing point guard in College Park. But right now, his pathway with Trae and DeJounte both healthy is to be a wing and play defense.
And to me, there's plenty of minutes for that. Sadiq Bey and DeAndre Hunter, I know I was singing their praises. They're not so good that they can't lose minutes to somebody like Kobe to give them a different element, especially against teams where they're getting really hurt by, get somebody who can set a tone as a perimeter defender with their athleticism and their talent level on the defensive end. That's where Kobe, I thought, really shined against the Rockets. I feel like that's why they won that game. But that, like I said, that's ultimately on the coach. Like I'm not the coach of the Hawks. I'd play Kobe.
Oh, me either. How about that? Sometimes people forget that I don't actually get to make the decisions. Well, Tyler, thank you for doing this. As always, we'll do it again soon. I neglected to do this earlier, which is my apologies. I wanted to make sure we talked about some stuff during the All-Star break, so here we are. Anything to plug on the way out? You got recommendations or what's going on?
I don't think I have anything new. Free Ren. If you're not watching it, you should be watching it. You really like, honestly, if you're a Jujutsu Kaisen fan, you gotta read the manga. It's free on Jump Plus is the app, Shonen Jump as well. Like, it's just the chapters are free because it's so popular. But like, you gotta be following along. It's the best thing I've seen in a shonen series. Gosh, probably since Hunter x Hunter. Really, like, honestly, like it's brought these sequences that are currently happening has brought back the feelings I had reading Hunter x Hunter, and that's the highest praise I can give a piece of fiction. So if you're a fan, I'm imploring you to read a manga. I'm imploring you to read. Don't just watch it on TV. Pick it up after the end of season 2. Pick it up right where it left off. I forget which chapter. It's around the hundreds. Yeah, that's really my biggest recommendation.
And follow this man on Twitter if he lets you at Jonesy2x4. He might not let you, but
not my fault, man. It's not
locked account.
Ideally, I'd be free, but these jobs.
I understand, my friend. Thank you for doing this. Also, you can catch Tyler on it seems like a more regular basis these days. ATL 29, the return. You've been on a lot recently. So
yeah,
more of Tyler.
My regular appearance there.
People should always listen to that show. As much as Kevin and I joke about it, I spent a lot of time with Kevin on Media Row, and that's a fantastic episode, podcast, all of it. Listen to that. Listen to us. There's time for all of it. There's all kinds of podcasts. You got Hawks Beat, Edwin's podcast, all kinds of shows. Jamil, we talked about Jamila earlier. Does a great job. Root for everybody. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate it, my friend. As for everybody else, please subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you all next time.